Okay.
To most, the name Skrillex evokes images of hipster haircuts, obnoxious bro culture, Molly-riddled raves, and most importantly, music that makes you cringe when you think about just how much you used to listen to it. And for a select few of you, myself included, you think of the baby-faced singer of From First to Last, one of the most underrated bands of the MySpace era. But what if I told you that there was an era in between? Skrillex almost went down a completely different path, and the implications of this could have meant that the current cultural climate and direction of the music industry would be a vastly different place than what we see today. Well, gather around and let your good friend Madison tell you all about an amazing little gem of an album named Bells, a strange EP called Gypsy Hook, From First to Last, and the oddly endearing but pretentious past of Sonny Moore, aka...
Yo, Skrill, drop it hard.
I was that kid banging on pots and pans, like just making music any way I could.
Now, before we can talk about Bells or any of the other odd projects that Sonny worked on, we need to touch on his odd and kind of bizarre upbringing. Sonny was born in the Devil's Den, the harem of degeneracy, Los Angeles, California. He was born to a family of Scientologists and grew up in homeschooling groups. And while that sounds like a recipe for a very sheltered and boring life, young Sonny was incredibly active in the LA punk and alternative scene, even having a CD recorded and released at 14 of his band At Risk.
Do you ever send your demo, your CD demo of At Risk to Razor?
God, that's amazing. No, but you know, I sent it to One Shot Records, which is kind of an East LA punk label out there. That's crazy. You have this.
What can you tell the people about At Risk? Early Sonny.
There's me. That's my first CD ever.
While this wouldn't be the big break that he saw just 2 years later, it was an important and formative experience that would shape Sonny into the frontman that we see today. Though at the age of 16, Sonny would go through another very formative and influential event, the tragic passing of a close friend of his who had committed suicide, something that alone would be enough to spiral any teenager into a pit of depression. But when coupled with the fact that he around the same time found out that he was adopted, and the people he knew as his parents were simply his aunt and uncle, and that the people who he thought was his aunt and uncle were his parents who simply didn't want him.
So when a friend of mine committed suicide, and I was talking to him, and he was in LA. He was like, yeah, we just got signed to Epitaph, and we're at this Epitaph Christmas party right now. We should hang out. And we never got to meet that night. That's when I was just like, kind of in a weird place. And
You said you were adopted. Tell me about that.
I was just turned 16, and I found out that some people that I knew my whole life were actually my parents and my brothers and sisters, and I had not known that, and I kind of found out through the grapevine.
It all led to Sonny, during a depressive episode, to beg Matt Good from First to Last to give him a chance to be their guitar player, and after running away from home and flying out to the studio, Sonny would end up becoming the singer of From First to Last, and give him his first taste of real success. From First to Last is an amazing and influential band, and if you want to know more about them, then check out my video covering their entire history. But in the case of Sonny Moore, his first album with them was, well, their debut.
Dear Diary, my teen angst bullshit has a body count.
And I couldn't think of a better film to reference or a more fitting title for the debut record by FFTL. The album saw Sonny showcase the more tongue-in-cheek side of himself with lyrics and vocal performances that tell the tales of heartbreak, insecurity, revenge, and obviously the titular teen angst, all shrouded in a sense of self-aware sarcasm and some biting satire. Dear Diary is a killer album from start to finish, and one that really encapsulates that classic 2000s emo post-hardcore sound, with poppy choruses, fast-paced guitars, whiny vocals, all glued together by Derek Bloom's technical drumming. This album would propel the band, and especially Sonny, into the spotlight of the early 2000s Warped Tour scene. Granting the band, and especially Sonny himself, massive popularity on MySpace. And this also probably was helped by the fact that Sonny really embodied the whole mall goth scene kid aesthetic that was extremely popular at the time.
You're always bullied if you're an emo kid.
I bet the ladies are gonna love this one. And through the success of Dear Diary and some pretty good tours from the band, it would gain them the friendship and recognition of some important players, becoming a fan favorite of the legendary punk rock label Epitaph Records, gaining a slot on an arena tour with Fall Out Boy, and headline slots on big tours including a few dates on Warped Tour 2005. The band would tour relentlessly for the next year and a half before entering the studio in late 2005 with Ross Robinson, the producer responsible for Korn and Slipknot and being one of the bedrocks of the nu metal sound that we all know today.
Weed, California. We're recording our new record from First to Last.
We're in Radio Star Studios in Weed, California. We chose to come here because Ross wanted to go somewhere kind of secluded.
And his work on the band's 2006 record Heroin pushed the band into its creative peak. Though Heroin would be Sonny's second and final album with the band before his departure a year later in 2007. Now, to talk about the record a bit, Heroin is an absolute masterpiece, and on a personal level, my favorite album of all time. The record is dark, dysphoric, and just a fever dream of sludgy nu metal-laden post-hardcore, though it shares very little DNA with Dear Diary outside of the name of the group who made it. The lyrics this time around are much darker, lacking the tongue-in-cheek nature of the previous album. Sonny sings from his soul on this record, and in my opinion, it's probably the most honest work he's ever put out, at least lyrically, with songs about bulimia, self-hatred, abuse, longing for acceptance, abandonment, and his own struggle with being rejected by his parents at birth. It goes to show that even the dubstep hippie himself might have some demons laying dormant in his system. Around the end of the initial touring circuit for Heroin, Sonny began to have issues with his voice. This was more than likely due to a mixture of blowing out his vocal cords from touring without rest, the obvious bulimia, and even a broken nose he never sought medical attention for. In 2004, Sonny was beaten up after a show which resulted in a broken nose, and instead of seeking medical attention, he fixed it by snapping it back into place whenever it became crooked. I don't know, maybe medical attention just isn't punk rock enough, but either way, these issues, as well as the financial and personal instability of the band after a major lawsuit from a former member and the end of their contract with Epitaph Records and a major record deal actually going under, it would all lead to Sonny leaving the band due to this and becoming a glorified homeless man in LA, squatting with other artists and musicians in an abandoned warehouse.
Oh boy, it's shilling time.
Yeah, hi, it's grifting, shilling, whatever you want to call it time. I'm just here to plug my Patreon. Because a lot of the stuff I cover is either music or media based, it's almost inevitable that whatever video I'm posting is gonna get that red sticker at me thrown in the no-no bin. So if you like what I do and you want to see more of my content, Patreon is the best place to support me. but even if you choose not to, I'm just glad you're enjoying the content. And don't worry, I'm not going to hide any of the main channel videos behind a paywall. But it's free, so give me your money, pay pig.
I like money.
This is the Bells EP from Sonny Moore. He drew this in Sharpie marker on a envelope. Quality Park. And I've never really, I don't really open this or show anybody this, but inside of it, when I got it, all it was some Sonny Moore buttons, which are weird, a Sonny Moore sticker, and Sonny Bells.
From 2007 to about 2009 or so, we would see the Bells era of Sonny after a handful of electronica and acoustic songs were released as demos on his MySpace. Sonny would self-release his album Bells online under his birth name, Sonny Moore. And to talk about Bells is an extremely interesting album and honestly contains a sound I wish he would have developed the most after From First to Last. The entire record is a very strange but cathartic experience, taking a lot of influence from indie music and pop, but it also would showcase the most influence from Aphex Twin and Bjork, artists Sonny has claimed to inspired him most.
Tell us your favorite song of all time.
Yep.
And how did it become your favorite song?
Okay.
Like, what was that moment in your life that it was like, this is me?
It's a song by Aphex Twin, a.k.a. Richard D. James. And it is the second song off of the Come to Daddy EP, and it is called Flim.
The album is hard to pin to a single genre because, honestly, there's just nothing else like it. Bells takes on a strange mix of electronica, emo, indie, and even goth music.
Excited to explore my new selves, where the moss and the bugs are like babies.
The lyrics on the record are different from both Dear Diary and Heroin, taking a much more abstract and poetic approach than the satirical, tongue-in-cheek, and even dark personal lyricisms of before. After the album was released, Sonny would hit 2008 running with a new band going under the name Sonny and the Blood Monkeys.
I'm Sonny.
I'm Joe the Blood Monkey.
And you're watching DJ Rawstar's Punk Rock Show!
He would play local LA shows as well as take part in the Alternative Press Tour. This would lead him to be signed to a major label, Atlantic Records, who began to invest in Sonny Moore, and after a few supporting slots on tours,
I came over to open for Chiodos, and I'm just doing a DJ set now, just because the label decided that they wanted to wait after I had like a release, my EP, out before I came over with the whole band, because it's pretty expensive to come over here.
He would release his last EP as a singer-songwriter, Gypsy Hook. Gypsy Hook came out around the same time that Sonny had started performing DJ shows as Skrillex, and that becomes instantly apparent when you listen to the EP itself. Gypsy Hook sounds like an odd mix of Bells and early Skrillex with a heavier emphasis on EDM-style synths and more dance-focused song structures. And to touch the elephant in the room, some admittedly impressive but at times very obnoxious high-pitched vocals. The best example of this can be seen on the EP's version of the song Mora, which was previously released on Bells. Mora also had a really strange and awkward video involving escorts and milk.
Swallow a little of that sea. Now taste a little bit of that salt and may. Throw up a little of it on your knees. Now doesn't it bring you back to the beginning?
What am I even watching? Sonny would finish off 2010 by performing at Bamboozle, a now defunct music festival. While his set was a success and there was a minor buzz regarding his EP, overall this would be the end of Sonny and the Blood Monkeys, or Sonny Moore as a singer-songwriter, era of his career.
Yeah, so Skrillex is, it was like an online handle that I used to use for a while, like for AIM and, different online profiles, and it never really had a meaning, and then when I was 16, I got it tattooed on the inside of my lip. It's actually gone now.
Around the same time as working on his solo album, Sonny would also begin to do DJ gigs all around LA and surrounding cities under the name Skrillex, as well as he would begin doing production work for other bands. Most famously, he got a gig doing all the electronics and production for Bring Me the Horizon's album, There Is a Hell, Believe Me I've Seen It, There Is a Heaven, Let's Keep It a Secret. Though as big as that opportunity was, it pales in comparison to what came after he released his first EP under the name Skrillex. The infamous My Name is Skrillex EP, one that he put up for free because, well, he couldn't get sample clearance on really anything. Though, despite all odds, when it dropped, it ended up blowing up. And as you can hear, especially by 2010 standards, this was a huge breath of fresh air. While it's easy to scoff at this and really any dubstep release nowadays, at its time, it was fresh, unique, and there really was nothing else quite like it. And it was through this underground success that Sonny would end up meeting Joel Zimmerman, aka Deadmau5. And this would end up with him releasing Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites to critical and commercial acclaim, leading to his now infamous success story as the King of Brostep, forever changing the landscape of electronic music for better or for worse. Though we can 100% blame him for the insufferable rave scene that he spawned.
I got you!
Now, all jokes and cringe aside, Skrillex blowing up and doing what he did was honestly incredibly impressive. Most artists that blow up only last a few months to a year at most, and Skrillex had hit after hit, built his own label, and left a permanent mark on history. The dubstep sound was inescapable for nearly 8 years, and countless artists would also bring their own marks to EDM and pop music, finding their success from either collaborating with Skrillex or being signed to Ausla, as well as the fact that Sonny had been an integral figure in 2 different scenes in 2 different decades. I honestly can't see where music would be today without Skrillex, whether it's the influence he had on the post-hardcore and emo boom of the 2000s, or the dubstep and EDM wave of the early 2010s, and I think that's probably the biggest compliment I could ever give him. But with all that being said, subscribe, support me on Patreon, follow me on Twitter. I'll see you in the next video.